The stage is yours.
Okay, so it's the last day, talk of the day, and so far either nobody has died yet or you have all covertly removed the bodies. I don't know. I see some people who might still be alive. So this is going to be a technical architecture / opportunity talk, and it's a little heavy fare for the end of the day, but I hope you stick with me anyway. Quickly, you know me as a Fediforum organizer. I also have a little startup called Dazzle Labs. I have done a ton of technical work in my life in the Fediverse. There's a thing called FediTest, which is a distributed test suite for ActivityPub and other kind of protocols like it. So you know me as an organizer, but I'm also an engineer, and I'm a founder of things. And so I want to recap to grounds of the discussion from the Fediverse to the open social web is what is the web? And of course we know all of this, but here's a particular way of looking at it. For me, the web primarily is a set of documents. And these documents are sitting there somewhere, and the thing that's new is, or it was new at the time, was they could point to each other. So we get a hypertext system. And everything else, from my perspective, is actually not all that important. That's the really important part. You can point to each other. Now, these web pages come, they come in chunks. They come in this thing called websites. And it's the unit of control, right? Somebody says, I'm going to set up a website, which is a bunch of pages, and I put it there, and somebody else says, I'm putting up a website over there, and we can point within these documents in those websites, and we can point to other people's websites. So the overall web is still there, but it is distributed and administered by different people in different places. One of the amazing things about the web is that, unlike any other technology known, is there's no one-on-one correspondence between the client and the server, right? Anyone, and I sort of intentionally misleadingly draw this here, right? Any one of those icons can access the entire web, and it doesn't matter which one it is, which is, we should marvel at the fact that such a thing exists, because it doesn't exist anywhere else, and is one of the greatest liberation kind of technologies we have, and we need to keep that in mind when people say, oh, but users only use apps. Maybe they do, you know, users only drink sugary drinks too. So, one more thing for this architecture diagram, most of these pages are actually not the pages that sit there statically, but they are generated from some kind of database that's behind it in some fashion. So this is my version of what's the World Wide Web. And it is a very high-level thing. You can quibble in lots of different ways, but it's a high-level overview. Now, if you recap what's the Fediverse, then the Fediverse, by and large, lives on the web. So we can use this architecture diagram and say, how does the Fediverse part of the web look like, right? So we now have a bunch of databases behind, and we have some, there's an icon that has gone away apparently in the PDF translation, but we have like instances of Mastodon and PixelFed and all of these things. This is supposed to be the PixelFed instance. And there's now documents on those websites that are more specific than just some random document, HTML file, right? These documents represent particular things. So for example, we have in the first row here below, actually, can I do this? Yeah, in the first row here, we have documents that represent profiles of people. So we have the concept of a person, which the web itself doesn't have it. The web itself is too generic for that. So we introduced the concept of a person, and we have a document that might be a feed, and the feed has stuff in it, and that is also objects that are going, you know, they provide more structure than just a document, such as a post or a reply or and so forth and so forth. And these things are, of course, linked as well. And they're linked not just in terms of hypertext links, but they're linked semantically that this is a reply to something. It's not just a random link. So we're basically we're using this web architecture to create higher level semantics that the web itself doesn't have in a Fediverse. And then, of course, the next thing that happens, but we still have these links. So if over here there is a user at some PixelFed instance, it still points back to that profile. We keep having these cross-functional links, but in addition, what the Fediverse brings us is that some of the content, and I tried to use different colors here, on different websites, can actually be the same because it's moved around. So if I here user 2 posts something and they write subscriptions and follow things are set up, then all of a sudden this post makes it over here and it makes it over here, which is also a new thing that the web itself doesn't do. The web assumes generally that the content sits on that website and that's it. Now we got this a little bit with RSS, which is not strictly the web either, but so we have some extensions to the web by extra conventions. And how does this work? We haven't actually talked about the technology, how any of this stuff works in the session at all. But as I'm sure many of you know, we have essentially some notion of feeds underneath where some piece of software here can subscribe to the piece of software here and sort of receive an event stream of what happens with the right subsetting, not all events, just some of them, depends on follows and replies and all sorts of stuff. But it's basically a feed, and the feeds can go both ways. And unlike RSS and so forth, the feeds are actually push feeds or can be push feeds, which mean that the latency between when something happens in one place and the other is as low as you would like them to be. So this is basically the Fediverse expressed in terms of what is the web. Now, just as an add-on, we also have platform-specific apps that people have built that tend to go with the instances. And architecturally, I think they are not really important, so I don't really want to talk about them because it's sort of an add-on, a user convenience add-on for certain use cases. So I don't want to really talk about them. Now, let's see first let's look at what is new here architecturally in the Fediverse version of the web. And there's several points. And the first thing we have here is what I think of as an internet-wide identity. When I have an account on a Mastodon server and you see my post on some other server, it's the same identity. Without that same identity, I would have some other handle on some other server and you have no way of figuring out that it is me. So we have a concept that you can recognize me wherever something happened to me, anywhere on the internet, which is something that doesn't really exist in any other place. So here's some use cases. Oh, this post is, but this person I didn't know they were actually on this particular site. This is cool, they're my friend, I'm gonna interact with them. And there's lots of technical work needed to improve this further, such as, for example, the fact that the identifiers currently that we have in the Fediverse are tied to the domain. You lose your identity as soon as you move your account to some other thing. But these are fixable problems. These are not particularly impossible, just somebody needs to actually do this. It would be also very nice to be able to say, I use my Mastodon account as my primary identifier, and I'm going to log into PixelFed with it and post on PixelFed with my Mastodon account. So people can say I'm the same guy, because that's the use case, right? There are a lot of nodding here. So there's some builders in the audience. Please take this home to your product teams. Second, what we have is structured low latency feeds. Okay, we've had some kind of feeds before, particular RSS, and there is, the essence here is that any website can get updates from any other, and there's no IT project required. For those of you who have worked in kind of an IT environment, most of the projects are system integration in one way or another, and it's always a ton of work. Plug and play does not exist, regardless of what everybody says. But here, plug and play largely does exist. And we have data feeds that are essentially real-time, because they can be pushed, and you can go back and backfill and do lots of things. And then we have a rather rich, extensible set of nouns and verbs already of things that can happen. When people say, the Fediverse, it's all about posts and likes and so forth, this is not really true, technically. It's just what people have implemented. There is a very large set of vocabularies of what could happen, like check-ins and all sorts of stuff. And it is extensible, so if you can say, something happened on my website, specifically an actor, somebody did something on my website, you can express it so it can become a feed that other people can subscribe to without an IT project. And then finally, we suddenly have a social graph, and of course there's a disclaimer down here, it's always with permission by the user, right? I'm not saying that anything should happen here that is against what the user wants. But if the user would like to, the social graph is accessible. Now, not many people use this, but here's one of my examples where I would like to use this. I go to an e-commerce site. Let's take our favorite boogie site, Amazon. and I'm looking at some product. Say it's a highly technical product, and I'm looking at, should I buy this and that? And I look into the comments section, and there's 5,000 comments here and here. They are largely useless to me, because I don't know who these people are. They're bots, whatever. Now, if some piece of software could take my list of people that I follow and let the Amazon site know what that is, then the Amazons, and there's different technical ways of implementing this. I'm not suggesting any privacy problems here. That can be done without that. But the Amazon site now could show me the comments of the people that I follow first. The whole thing suddenly becomes relevant to me, right? Because I go like, oh, I know these 3 people. They are very, very technical geeks. I have very high confidence in their technical abilities. If they give me a 5-star review for this product, I buy this. I don't need to know anything else, right? But Amazon or anybody else cannot do that because we don't live on the, actually, they don't use this kind of functionality. And this is where I'm going from the Fediverse to the open social web. We currently think of the Fediverse as this thing which is social media just built differently, but it's sort of separate from the rest of the web. And what I'm trying to say is if we took these features and incorporated them into any website that you have, lots of cool stuff could be done. And here is summary, universal account. All your activities in one website could be streamed to another. Let me maybe pick this one here. What if the feed of all your purchases flow directly into your personal account, personal storage of all e-commerce that you did? It would help me because I always don't remember where I bought something. Healthcare, what about all your health stuff gets aggregated into your personal health record? We have the technology to do that. That's not social media, but the base features that I was talking about allow us to do that. Or in software development, imagine you had a single feed of everything that happened in your project. So some people are trying to do this with Slack. Everything gets implemented into your Slack channel, but that's not really the right medium either. So we can do a lot of things. I talked about this example. And so I want to close with some questions to ponder. As a user, let's look at the different roles that we have here. As a user, what if I could use the same identity over the whole web if I wanted? Would that be good? Passwords, that kind of thing? Or subscribe to anything that happens on any website and get it where I wanted to have. Or I find my friends on any website I visit. As a website operator, what if I could let my users bring their identity as opposed to setting up new accounts? What if I could publish my content, regardless of what my site is, so it can be found and liked and interacted with anywhere? What if I could reach not just my direct users, but their friends too? I mean, with permissions. But this is the kind of thing where you go like, oh, this is a really cool site. Have you checked this out? What if you could just build right into it? And then finally here, as a builder, an innovator, an entrepreneur, as a hacker who wants to do something interesting, what valuable thing can I build? Not necessarily in the Fediverse or social media, by using these key technologies for my own project. And so my call to action is this: what about we turn the entire web social? And that's the end of it. Thank you. Consider coming to the next Fedi Forum, and that we do virtually again in spring. If you want to follow up with me, here is my link aggregator, which should be a social site, which isn't. It's just a static site. But that's the beginnings of how this all works. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. We have now 5 seconds left. Thank you for your perspectives again. If I may just add 2 or 3 sentences. I would like to say, since Mastodon has been mentioned so often today through all the tracks, or most of the tracks, I would like to say that we have Felix, the CFO of Mastodon, among us here. Say hi and maybe also thank you. And the other thing is, I just want to repeat that I'm really happy that we had this track here today. It was a lot. We had 12 excellent talks, I must say. I'm really happy that I could be the moderator of it. If you take something with you, please consider that fighting NGTification means fighting for our democracy, and I'm sure we have the power. We have so much motivation here and so many ideas. I think cooperating is the thing we can do to fight for our democracy. Please take that with you. Online communication is a very powerful tool to do so. So many thanks for being here today, and have a nice evening. And I hope we stick together, create a community, and see each other in all other contexts we have in the online communication area. Thank you so much.
And with my organizer hat on, thank you everybody who has been supporting, particularly Melanie as MC, Tommy who has been Tommy who has been rousing the rabble, I think it's called, being a rabble rouser and getting organized, getting us in here, and jack of all trades. And then, of course, many people who have been Fediforum supporters and attendees and presenters. Before, if you don't know, the fediforum.org has the full notes from six events so far, of hundreds of unconference sessions on all subjects of the Fediverse. Is probably the single best document repository for what the current thinking is. And we also have a PeerTube channel and a YouTube channel that has all the demos and all of the keynotes on it. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there as well. It's an unconference, meaning that you can come and you're encouraged to, and you have to come and bring your topics. This is the first time we do an organized track where we organizer decided what is being talked about, because that's the only thing we could do here at SFSCon. But Fediforum itself is an unconference, you bring the topics. So if you think, I really would have liked to hear about XYZ, come and put the topic on this agenda. And finally, tomorrow, BOF. When is the BOF exactly?
Yeah, we have a BOF tomorrow at 11.
At 11, okay.
It's up there at the Crane Hall, right?
Crane Hall in the middle. There, right next to it is a table where there's a lot of sheep, according to Jazz, on the screen, where people can play around with some Fediverse software and ask questions. I think it's only 40 minutes, something like that. So the current plan is to have open discussion, because people want to interact with each other. And depending how people will show, we might break it into 3 groups, which might work. And we'll see exactly who shows.